Welcome to our Communiversity Today, a community affairs program from West Virginia University Institute of Technology in Beckley, hosted by Dr. T. Ramon Stuart, president of West Virginia University Institute of Technology, working to make a difference in Southern West Virginia. Guest opinions expressed on this program may not represent the opinions of West Virginia University Institute of Technology or Southern Communications. And now with today's program, here's Dr. Stewart.
Well, welcome to our Communiversity Today. So glad you joined me again. I'm Dr. Ramon Stuart, president of WVU Tech here in Beckley. And I'm thankful that you chose to be with us this morning as we explore more about our Communiversity. You know, I'm a firm believer that the community should be the university and the university should be the community. And so when we think about Communiversity, there are so many different things that we can do to make sure that all ships rise with the tide. And when you think about Southern West Virginia, you think about where we are. More importantly, you always need to think about where we can go. And so today we're going to look at that. We're going to think about where we can go, and we're going to explore the topic of economic growth and development here. And today I have a special guest in studio with me, none other than the man, the myth, the legend, John Paul Houston, a friend of ours. And as always on this show, our Communiversity Today, we're going to look at asking and answering two questions. And that's simply, why not us? And why not now? So, John Paul, thank you for being in the studio today. How are you?
I am great, Dr. Stewart. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Excellent, excellent. So, John Paul, again, you know, we're in West Virginia, and you're a neighbor from Virginia, you know, the other Virginia. So what brought you to West Virginia?
Yeah, it gets kind of interesting. I am from Southwest Virginia, but I love spending time in Southern West Virginia. So I came here 3 years ago. Interestingly, as part of a business that I own, I have a private lending business. I lend money to fix and flippers and fix and renters. I take people from the courthouse steps to a bank loan or to a real estate agent's office or an attorney's office for a closing. So when people buy a property, often a distressed property, to renovate that property, it's difficult to get financing because the bank doesn't want to make a loan that's only going to be on the books for 3 or 4 months. And those loans sometimes are a little more risky than, say, a home mortgage that's backed by a person or two people with jobs. So I've sort of found a niche inside a niche in the lending world and make loans to people who are in that fix and flip business. Well, I made a loan here in Southern West Virginia, actually in Raleigh County. I guess it was 3.5 years ago, and that loan was the beginning point to this journey.
So that's so exciting, John Paul. You know, oftentimes entrepreneurs want to do some things, and we talk about the housing shortage here in Southern West Virginia. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I want to hear more about your ideas on the flip and fix and the different financing. And so let me do this real quick, though. Before we get into the nitty gritty, let me take a break. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break real quick, be back with more our Communiversity Today on News Talk WWNR.
WVU Tech's Regents Bachelor of Arts degree is crafted for adult learners like you. Flexible, affordable, and tailored to your goals. You can even earn credit for work and life experience, giving you a jump on completing your degree. Whether you're finishing a degree you started or shifting to a new career, WVU Tech provides the resources and support you need to make it a reality. Take the next step at wvutech.edu/admissions today.
And now back to our Communiversity Today on News Talk WWNR, 620 AM and 101.1 FM, and online at wwnrradio.com. Here's Dr. Stewart.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our Communiversity Today. Again, we're here visiting with John Paul Houston, a local investor and rehab of properties, and we're discussing the topic of entrepreneurship and economic development. So, John Paul, you talked about, you know, being from southwestern Virginia and you come into southern West Virginia, namely Raleigh, Fayette counties and everything. What exactly attracted you to right here?
Well, it was business to start with. I made a loan here, and then a second loan and a third loan. And I started looking at some of the published information about this area. Candidly, I only lived 2 hours away, and it was astounding to find out the opportunity here. And you saw a big grin on my face in the first segment when you were talking about rise with the tide. All ships rise with the tide. And the reason that I was grinning when you said that is I thought, wow, this was a wave. And that was the thought I found, because I was seeing potential here that I didn't see in Virginia. I didn't see it in Blacksburg. I didn't see it in Roanoke. I didn't see it in Lynchburg. And the research was very interesting. I found a published report that looked at return on income for rental property. And there were, I think, 400 markets analyzed in this report. And number one was Houma, Louisiana. I can't remember 2 and 3. They were Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and Dothan, Alabama. I'm not sure which was second and which was third. And then number 4, Beckley, West Virginia.
Hold on. You're telling me out of more than 400 places throughout this nation, Beckley, West Virginia is in the top 5 for return on investment?
That's right. It's interesting because the metrics that people use, say, in the Roanoke, Virginia market don't apply here because there's so much more opportunity here in the rental business in particular. And it was astounding. So I'm scratching my head thinking, well, I'm doing financing for some of these folks who are doing fix and flips here. And I start looking at some of the purchases and some of the work they were doing, some of the sales, and the numbers are just better here than they were in the places where I do business.
Yeah. And so I think that's interesting because as you watch the news and you hear different local entities, they talk about the housing shortage here. And you're talking about fix and flips and financing and also doing them yourself. So how is that market here?
Well, it's interesting that you would bring that up. So my research led me down a couple other paths, and there is a tremendous amount of backlog in the need for rental properties, houses to be purchased. And it's sort of perplexing because you hear that this is somewhat of a down economy, but when you look at the real estate business, I have a hard time seeing that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in real estate. There seems to be really good income spreads in the fix and flip market. So the money that people are making in say, Western Virginia or even Central Virginia, it's not nearly as good as it is here. These folks who are doing fix and flips, who are taking these distressed properties and turning them into good properties, are actually more profitable than they are in some of the other markets that I see.
Yeah, and when you talk about distressed properties and everything, one of my concerns here in southern West Virginia is just the challenge that the drug and opioid epidemic has presented. And with that, I travel around quite a bit, and I see the dilapidated structures and everything. Is the fix and flip? Is this those types of properties? Are those the kind of properties you're interested in?
Well, that's what I had financed. And about 3 years ago, I decided to try to do a few fix and flips on my own because I had one important piece of that puzzle already in place, and that was financing, because I could do that. And we started buying some properties. We bought a hotel in Beckley, did a hotel to apartment conversion. We bought an incredibly dilapidated building in Oak Hill, and we rehabilitated it. It is beautiful right now. It is
excellent. And so your reach extends beyond just Beckley and Raleigh County.
It's mostly in Beckley, but the second project we did was in Fayette County. We've done a few things in Fayette County, but it's mostly in Raleigh County.
So, with that, those sound like bigger opportunities and everything. Have you done anything for single dwelling or single family homes, or to kind of help build this area up?
And we have. I found that there are a lot of properties here, the boarded up properties that you mentioned, that are still in good enough condition that they can be rehabbed. I just brought a couple of these to look at to show you today. And, you know, one of these houses was full of drugs. The copper had been stripped out, and it was basically worthless from the standpoint that it couldn't really be lived in. I don't think there was very much being paid, if anything, to the county in taxes. This was out in Raleigh County. This was a house that I bought for $80,000. We put $90,000 worth of rehabilitation in it.
So $170,000. How much is that house selling for?
So the house sold just a few months ago for $263,000.
So you're looking at a $93,000 profit if I'm doing my math correctly.
The only thing you forgot was the little bit that the real estate agents took. But it was still a pretty good. Okay. It was still a good day at the box office.
Excellent. And so with that, are you finding that it took a long time to sell the fix and flip, or how did that go?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's one that I'm happy to be able to answer because we listed that house on Thursday, and 8 days later we had 3 offers at or above the asking price.
I love it.
And so we had it on the market, fairly quickly. Another house that we did in the county. This was a house that I particularly enjoyed working on. We bought it for around $40,000. It was a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with 2 big living rooms. It was kind of an odd setup. The house was built, I think, in 1960. And we were able to take that 2-bedroom, 1-bath house and turn it into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. So we bought it for $40,000. We put $60,000 renovation money in that house. So we're $100,000 in it. We sold it for $140,500, and so we were able to have about a $30,000 profit. What I really liked about that house is this was a house, an FHA financed house. So the buyers were able to purchase this house for under $10,000 with a payment of around $800 a month. I guess when you add your insurance and taxes in, maybe the payment was close to $1,000. But to be able to own a house at about the same price that house would rent for if you rented it, it's really satisfying. One of the most satisfying moments of my young life living in Virginia as the oldest of 4 children in a family with 2 public education educators was when I saw my mom and dad buy the first house. I was 19 years old, and that made me so happy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I oftentimes talk about my humble beginnings growing up in the free state of McDowell County and how my mother went from a high school dropout with a GED all the way up to a PhD. And I can remember as a little boy, our first home was a HUD home. That was the way that my mother and other people in Welch, West Virginia were able to get a home in something that we actually held in our family until about 5 years ago. Wow. So I think the notion of providing home ownership opportunities in an affordable manner is not only a noble thing, but it's the right thing. It's the kind of stuff that, as we talk oftentimes here in Southern West Virginia, we talk about what we do not have or what we need to get. But what I see you doing is taking the opportunities, working with people, working for people to provide them a way out of no way. And so I think that's certainly commendable. And what happens is, as you continue to do that, what I believe is you've already started to answer the question, why not us? And so I want to thank you for you doing that because I think more people with external ideas and concepts need to come and work with us to show us different opportunities of what we can do. So what I want to do, since you told us, why us, why not us? I want to take a short break real quick. We're going to stay tuned. And when we come back on WWNR for more Our Communiversity Today, I'm going to ask you, why not now, to take it even further. Thank you.
Find out how you can be a part of the Communiversity family, like Pendleton Community Bank, your bank for generations, the City of Beckley, the Beckley Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce, Cucumber and Company. Visit Southern West Virginia, the resort at Glade Springs, and this Southern Communications Station. Find out more at southernwvmedia.com. With more Communiversity Today, here's Dr. Stewart.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our Communiversity Today. Again, in studio is John Paul Houston, and we're discussing economic development and fix and flips. So, John Paul, again, I always like to ask, why not us? Why not now? And I think you've told us why not us, or, you have a compelling message, understanding where Beckley ranks, work in Raleigh County, both Raleigh and Fayette County. So just doing the Lord's work, honestly. But, there's a lot more work to do. And so when I think about why not now, and just looking at some of the things, whether it's downtown Beckley and the historic buildings and the history throughout Southern West Virginia, what do we need to do?
We just need to do.
I love it. So we need to stop talking about it. Just start being about it.
Just go out and grab a hammer and get busy, because the opportunities are here. There is a tremendous supply of resources, and the resources in this case would be the real estate that needs to be rehabilitated. You've got apartment buildings,
so
houses.
So you talk about that real estate. You talk about the real estate, and there's always a conversation about affordable housing, and I'll be honest with you, I like nice, new, and shiny. But what does this market really support?
Well, this market supports, it does support nice, new, and shiny, because you can take an old building. We've got one right now that is going to be so much fun. It's over on Hargrove Street. It's an old building, but an old house. At one time, it was one of the nicest houses around. It's got so much character. And you can take that character and you can retain the character. And at the same time, you can get the new and the shiny. And you've got the best of both worlds, because you have structure inside that building that you can't afford to pay for today if you're building a new house. You've got trim work that would be astronomically expensive if you tried to duplicate it today. And the character, the structural integrity of some of these old houses is incredible. So you take that and then you turn it into something that is also new and shiny, and you can do it for a fraction of the cost of what a new house would cost. So you've got plenty of raw materials here. The labor is a little bit of a difficult issue. You've got to work a little bit to get the labor, but it is there. You've got governments here, both the city of Beckley and the county government, that are very focused on supporting this. So you look at what the county commission and what the city government's trying to do here. They're on your side. They want you to succeed. That's a big plus. It's not that way everywhere. You've got a great market. People are wanting to buy your product when you finish. When you finish with it, whether it's a rental or whether it's to sell a house to a homeowner.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear about the collaboration. Being from West Virginia, I know that we are very big on supporting our own. I think I saw in the newspaper, was it yesterday, you were going up before the county commission to be put on the planning and zoning board. So I think that's good. So how has, as you go through and you introduce these new concepts and everything, how has the area embraced you, not being from the West Virginia?
It has been an absolute joy. People have been so kind. They've been so helpful. We've had our struggles. I mean, there is a lot of crime, I think, in large measure based on the addiction problem that we face everywhere, but it's particularly bad here. And, you're going to have problems. When you wake up in the morning, you better just realize I'm going to have some problems today. And we have some problems that we have to deal with in this process. We've had copper stripped out of houses before, and that's not much fun. It's both very expensive and it's very hurtful because, when you have something and somebody else takes it, you don't feel very good about it.
And I think the big thing there is light drives out darkness. And I think as you provide opportunities for people to do better and be better, then they find alternatives to, the drugs, the opioids, the theft. And so I'm glad to hear that people are embracing your vision. You talked about some of the big projects and everything. So when you think about these projects, I almost think that they give hope. Okay. And one of the things that I get concerned with sometimes, given whether it's the decimation of the coal industry in southern West Virginia, the overall population decline in this particular state, I just want to make sure that we're doing things to support and also bolster the hope in this area. And I think you and your fix and flips and the investments that you're trying to do bring about that. And so when you think about why not now, what's next? What do you get more into historic buildings? Do you continue the single family home? What's next?
Well, we have done a little bit of work in historic building space. There are some unique challenges there, but those are fun projects. But the meat and potatoes, I think, is just taking these old boarded up houses and turning them into beautiful structures that can be offered to a young couple looking for their first home. And boy, that's satisfying. When you see somebody that's able to afford something, you've made the neighborhood better, you've increased the taxes that the city or county will receive through a nicer house, and you've got a couple that's happy. I've heard a few stories about companies who were looking to relocate here, and there have been some times I think that one of the factors that has been a negative when the companies graded out this area was available housing. Well, we can make that better. If we have more housing, that's going to help industries desire to relocate here, to locate here, because there's so much going for this area. It's such a beautiful place, good people, the college. There is a lot going on here that draws people to this area. So, when a company wants to, when they look at this area, they say, well, we've got 100 jobs. They've got to say, well, where are these 100 people going to live? And they've got to be able to answer that question. And if they can't answer that question, then they're not going to come here.
So along those lines, bringing business and industry here, which, will move us further along economic growth and development and everything. How long from identification of the property to putting it on the market to sell, approximately how long does it take?
It, of course, depends on the scope of the work. If you've got structural problems with the house, obviously that's going to be a lot longer. Quite often, we do some pretty significant renovations. Oftentimes, we're putting in new heating and air. We're putting in new electric and new plumbing, and that's a big job. And so in a major overhaul like that, it's usually about 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
We'd like to say it's 3 months all the time, but sometimes reality barks back at us.
And so given your workforce, how many houses can you work on simultaneously?
Right now, I think we're working on about 7 or 8. We've got one major 27-plex, I guess a block or two from where we are right now. That one is a bigger project. That will be a 12-plus month project, but it's a major rehabilitation on a very, very distressed property. And so on a house, 3 or 4 months, and a big apartment building, maybe a year and a half.
Okay. And I think it's exciting, on the campus of WVU Tech, we have Hogan Hall. And I know your general contractor, the man that makes it all work, none other than Rob Hogan, another McDowell County boy, if I may say so myself, but Rob Hogan, and he used to be a primary builder for the late, great Chris Klein. And so how is Rob working?
Oh, he's great. He's built everything from $50 million islands to low-income housing. He built Cranberry Woods. He, as you mentioned, built Hogan Hall. He built fancy houses. He's done now all measures of rehab work, and he just loves to work. He's a great guy. He loves this area. He is very committed to our vision of making this area better through improving the real estate that's in the area. And we work well together, and he is a real pro.
Yeah. So, John Paul, I'm sitting here in the studio, and I see this smile on your face. And I think it's so important because when you love what you do more of what you love. So tell me how you feel.
I feel great. I'm energized when I'm here, and when I see the work that is being done. It is a very good feeling because you know you're doing something good. So it's something when you finance a house, you're helping someone else do good. When you're doing the fix and flip yourself, everybody wins. It's better for the community. You're providing a new house for a person, a rental or a purchase. You're lifting up the entire city. You're adding to the tax base, and everybody wins. And there aren't many things in life that you can say every single person that's looking at this is coming out ahead.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to have in studio again with me today, John Paul Houston. And I want to thank you so much. And it's time for a quick break. And so I ask that you stick with us on News Talk WWNR as we close out this edition of our Communiversity today.
Need a change and ready to transfer? WVU Tech offers the best return on your college investment in West Virginia, and we make it easy to apply and transfer your existing credits. We've got top-ranked, affordable engineering programs, 4-year degrees in science, business, and nursing, plus financial aid and student support services. WVU Tech could be just the place for you. Find out more information at wvutech.edu/admissions today.
Find out more about how you can be a part of the Communiversity. Visit wwnrradio.com. Now back to the program.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you back to our Communiversity today. Again, I'm so delighted to have joined me today, John Paul Houston, a gentleman that has come to Southern West Virginia to share of his time, to share of his talent, but also to be a treasure to this area. And I think it's so important because as you think about Communiversity and you think about the work that John Paul is doing in this community, I look at WVU Tech nestled here in Beckley, and I think, why not us and why not now? And when I look at the work you're doing, whether it be working with engineering firms that are led by people who graduated from Tech years ago, you're doing the work to help build and develop an infrastructure right here in downtown Beckley and the surrounding areas that is attractive not only to the current generation, but also future generations. Because one of the big things that we all have to contend with as we look and you come to a WVU Tech and we graduate you and you have the #1 return on investment of all 4-year institutions in the state of West Virginia, the question becomes, how do we keep the next generation here? And with individuals like yourself, John Paul, that are going in and investing in properties like on Hargrove or investing in single family housing, not only can we provide opportunities for new business and industry to locate here, but we can also do some things to make sure that the people that graduate want to live, work, play, and raise a family right here in Southern West Virginia. And so I want to thank you, John Paul, for all that you have done and what you will do. And to our listeners, I want to thank you for joining me today. And please visit wwnrradio.com for additional information about this topic and our guest, John Paul Houston. And please, as always, think about how you can help build our Communiversity today.
You've been listening to Our Communiversity Today, a production of West Virginia University Institute of Technology and Communiversity partner, Southern Communications in Beckley. This program and contact information is available on our website and our mobile app at wwnrradio.com. Join us next week for our Communiversity Today.